Sign here, Nova. We're promoting Derek instead. Grant Mercer slid the rejection form across the table like he was handing me a parking ticket, not erasing 6 years of my life. I stared at the paper. Derek Mercer, his nephew, had been with Hawthorne Grid for 11 weeks. He still called the client recovery dashboard that colorful spreadsheet. Apparently, that was senior leadership material now. Grant adjusted his cufflinks and smiled. Nova, you're valuable. He tapping my achievement packet like it was a restaurant receipt. But senior leadership requires readiness, and honestly, you're not there yet. Before I tell you how Derek's shiny new promotion triggered the first crack, hit the like button because trust me, this disaster had not even warmed up yet. I'm also curious, where are you watching from and what's the temperature there right now? Drop it below. Now I'll explain in more detail. For 6 years, I had kept Hawthorne Grid's operations from folding like cheap office furniture. I managed rollout calendars, rebuilt broken workflows, trained managers who now avoided my eyes, and wrote the emergency procedures everyone pretended had always existed. When a database froze at midnight, they called me when Grant needed impressive numbers for the executive committee. He used mine, his vision naturally. Grant had been my boss for 9 months. He owned 3 tailored suits, a leadership podcast vocabulary, and no working knowledge of the system. He bragged about controlling, yet there he sat, deciding I lacked readiness. I smiled because corporate survival had taught me that screaming only gives incompetent men a chance to call you emotional. Inside my bag was my signed resignation letter. A competitor had offered me Director of System Strategy, a 48% raise, and the delightful benefit of never hearing Grant say synergy again. I had planned to send my notice after this meeting. Then Grant leaned back. You should be grateful, he added. Some people are built to assist, not lead. That was when I deleted the resignation email from my drafts. I was not staying to suffer. I was staying so Hawthorne Grid could learn what happened when I did only the work they actually paid me to do. Wait a second. Let me make one thing clear. This is a fictional story with a few AI-enhanced details. It's created to entertain, inspire, and highlight some valuable lessons along the way. So sit back, enjoy the journey. Now, let's keep going. To understand why Grant's words hit like an insult wrapped in cheap management language, you need to know what Hawthorne Grid looked like before I became its unofficial life support system. When I joined 6 years earlier, operations was a junk drawer. Client onboarding took 42 days on average. Escalation tickets disappeared into Nobody knew which team owned which failure, but everyone was talented at forwarding blame. So, I rebuilt it. I mapped every workflow, rewrote approval chains, created recovery playbooks, and built dashboards that showed problems before they became public apologies. I reduced onboarding from 42 days to 12. I helped save the Barden Freight renewal worth $14 million. After their integration collapsed during testing, I wrote 236 operating documents because apparently institutional knowledge meant. Ask Nova. Grant Mercer arrived later with polished shoes and motivational phrases he stole from airport business books. He attended the final 10 minutes of crisis meetings, repeated my solution in a deeper voice, and somehow left with the credit. Excellent leadership, Grant. The CFO once said. I nearly applauded, not for him, for the performance. Then the unfairness became personal. Grant introduced his nephew, Derek, as our associate operations manager, a title invented with the same care people give to naming a goldfish. Derek had been there 11 weeks. He once asked whether SLA stood for Sales Lead Average. Grant assigned me to train him. Think of it as mentoring future leadership. He said, of course. Nothing says professional growth like teaching your replacement how to sit in the chair you earned. I spent 2 weeks walking Derek through systems he barely pretended to understand. Then one evening, while checking a shared project folder, I found an email Grant had copied into the transition archive. It read, once Nova completes Derek's handoff materials, we can remove her from queue for headcount planning. I stared at that sentence until the room felt quiet. So that was the plan. After finding that email, I did not slam anything, quit dramatically, or send a company-wide confession about toxic leadership. That would have been satisfying for about 12 minutes. Instead, I chose something much cleaner. I started doing exactly what Hawthorne Grid paid me to do on Monday. I arrived at 9 o'clock sharp, not 7:15, with a coffee and 3 solved emergencies. I opened only tickets assigned to my role. I answered messages addressed to me directly. I stopped rewriting Derek's reports, stopped preparing Grant's meeting notes, and stopped rescuing every department that treated my desk like a free repair shop. At 5 o'clock, I packed my laptop. Peter from Client Services blinked at me. You're leaving? Yes, I said. My workday is over. By Wednesday, the little machine Grant loved bragging about began coughing bolts. 11 tickets missed, response deadlines. A shipment integration for Barton Freight stalled because Derek approved the wrong version. 2 clients complained that their escalation summaries contained numbers from last quarter. Grant's weekly operations report went to the CFO showing a 96% completion rate while the live dashboard showed 61%. Naturally, this became my attitude problem. Grant appeared beside my desk with Derek hovering behind him like a nervous intern wearing manager shoes. Nova, this lack of teamwork is disappointing. I turned my monitor toward him. Which task are you referring to all of this? He snapped. You know how these things work. I do, I said, but my current job description covers assigned operational coordination, not executive reporting, nephew training, or emergency recovery for decisions I was excluded from. His face tightened. Are you refusing to help? No. I'm following the responsibilities you approved during my review. Then I forwarded him the HR policy on role boundaries, after-hours work, and written authorization for expanded duties. By Friday, the CFO called me in. Nova, she said carefully, why does everything slow down when you stop volunteering? I smiled once. That's a very important question now. The CFO's question did not stay private for long. By Monday morning, Grant had discovered the ancient executive art of pretending a crisis was a strategy. He announced an operations war room complete with a calendar invite and no understanding of the war. Derek was named response lead because, according to Grant, fresh leadership creates fresh momentum. Fresh was one word for it. Derek opened the first meeting by sharing the wrong client list. Then he told implementation to push patch 4.2.2.2 Barton Freight, even though Barton was still running a customized 3.9 environment because their warehouse scanners were older than Grant's confidence. I watched from the edge of the room, taking notes while 3 engineers stared at Derek like he had suggested fixing a server with lip balm. By noon, Barton's routing dashboard was throwing errors across 5 distribution centers. By 200, their operations director had sent a message with the kind of punctuation that makes legal departments sit upright. Grant found me at my desk 10 minutes later. Nova, I need you to stabilize Barton immediately. I looked up. I thought Derek was leading the war room. He is, Grant said, jaw tight. But you know the system, and Derek has authority over the response. I said, I would not want to undermine your leadership structure for one glorious second. He looked like he had swallowed a stapler. This is not the time for games. I agree. Please send written authorization clarifying that I am taking over emergency recovery from Derek, including the reason for the change. His eyes narrowed. You want an email? Yes. That keeps everyone aligned. He sent it 7 minutes later. The message said Barton had been placed under Derek's temporary leadership, that the rollout decision had failed, and that I was now being assigned to correct the issue. I saved it, forwarded it to my personal records under company policy, and smiled. Grant had just signed the receipt for his own disaster. Grant's email was useful, but Barton Freight's next message made it priceless. At 8:12 the following morning, their operations director sent a formal notice if Hawthorne Grid failed to restore stable routing within 72 hours. Barton would activate the penalty clause. The number sat in bold, near the bottom $2.4 million. I knew how to fix the problem. I could have opened the recovery map, rolled back Derek's bad patch, rebuilt the scanner bridge, and saved Grant before lunch. I had done that kind of miracle often enough to qualify for sainthood or at least hazard pay, but every miracle I performed had become another bullet point in Grant Mercer's leadership story. So I did something better. I documented everything. I pulled timestamps from the war room invite, Derek's wrong version approval, Barton's first error report, Grant's written order, and every ignored warning I had sent before the rollout. Then I wrote a formal risk summary and sent it to the CFO, HR Legal, and the CEO's Chief of Staff. No insults, no drama, just decisions, consequences, dollars, and receipts. Grant stormed to my desk 20 minutes later, red-faced and whispering loudly, which is a special talent only frightened executives seem to master. Are you trying to embarrass me? He hissed. I kept my voice calm. No, I'm recording the operational facts. You made this look like my fault. If the timeline creates that impression, you should speak with the timeline. Derek stared at the carpet like it might offer him a transfer by mid-afternoon. The CFO asked for every attachment. Legal requested the email chain. HR asked whether I had been performing emergency recovery work outside my role without formal recognition. Then the CEO finally read the report. At 4:37, a new invite appeared. Executive response call with Barton Freight. The attendee list included me, Grant, the CFO legal, and the CEO under Grant's name. The role said observer under mine recovery lead. The room was about to shift. If you think I went too far by documenting every mistake instead of quietly saving Grant again, comment too harsh. But if you believe I was right to protect myself with facts, comment justice for Nova. I needed to know someone understood why silence was no longer an option. The Barton call began with Grant doing what Grant did best, using confident words to cover an empty plan. "Thank you for your patience," he said, leaning toward the speakerphone. "We have aligned our internal resources around a strategic recovery initiative." There was a pause from Barton Freight's side. Then their operations director, Marlene Shaw, said, "We would prefer to hear from Nova Wells." Grant's smile froze. "Deserving a maintenance ticket?" I unmuted myself. "Marlene, the routing failure came from pushing patch 4.22 into your customized 3.9 environment without scanner bridge validation that broke location syncing across 5 distribution centers. The fix is straightforward, but it needs to happen in sequence." The room went quiet. The useful kind of quiet. I laid out the recovery plan in 3 phases. First, roll back the patch and restore scanner compatibility within 6 hours. Second, rebuild the routing table and verify each warehouse lane by midnight. Third, run a controlled test batch before reopening full volume the next morning. No heroic nonsense, no motivational fog, just work. Marlene exhaled. "That is the first answer we've received. That sounds like someone understands our business." Grant jumped in. "Exactly. My team has been moving toward that framework." I looked at him. So did the CEO. Marlene ignored him. "Well, pause the penalty notice if Nova leads the recovery personally." Grant's chair creaked. "Nova does not currently have that authority." The CEO folded his hands. "She does now." Just like that, the room changed shape. I assigned engineering to the rollback, client services to Barton updates, and Derek to documentation review where he could injure fewer live systems. By 9:40 that night, Barton's scanners were syncing again. By morning, all 5 centers were stable. The $2.4 million penalty disappeared from active risk. But the real shift came 2 days later. 3 other strategic clients emailed their account managers with the same request. Future operational changes needed Nova Wells involved from the beginning. Grant had wanted to prove I was replaceable. Instead, he had made me unavoidable. Being unavoidable did not make Grant quieter. It made him dangerous. 2 days after Barton stabilized, he sent a complaint to HR and legal accusing me of withholding critical knowledge to create personal dependency. In plain English, I had committed the crime of knowing the system I built. He brought Derek as his witness. Derek sat beside him with a legal pad, and the expression of a man realizing nepotism did not include immunity. Grant opened with wounded dignity. "Nova has intentionally made herself the only person capable of operating key processes." Counsel Miss Park looked at me. "Do you have a response?" "Yes," I said, sliding a folder across the table. "Training calendars, attendance logs, handoff documents, process guides, email confirmations." The folder was thick enough to qualify as office furniture. I showed them the 6 onboarding sessions Derek skipped. The 3 recovery workshops Grant canceled because he needed Derek visible in leadership meetings. And the 236 pages of documentation uploaded to the shared drive. Every file had times, every meeting had invites. Every warning had a reply. Then, Miss Park read one of Derek's emails aloud. "Uncle Grant says the scanner bridge section is too technical. I'll review later if needed." Derek stopped writing. Grant leaned forward. "Those documents were intentionally confusing." I opened another email from him praising the same documents as executive ready operational architecture before he submitted them to the board under his name. The silence turned sharp. Grant's face wrined. "She is manipulating the data." I looked at him. "Then let's check the metadata." No one moved. Metadata would show who created the documents, who edited them, and who renamed my work before presenting it upstairs. Grant knew that. Derek knew it. Legal knew it. Too, for once. Grant Mercer had no polished phrase ready. Ms. Park closed the folder. "We'll need a full internal review." Grant stared at me like I had betrayed him. I had not. I had merely kept receipts. The internal review reached the board faster than Grant expected, especially since he had spent months moving slowly whenever my promotion was involved. I was asked to present in the executive conference room, the one where Grant had once displayed my workflow model under the title Mercer Efficiency Framework. This time, my name was on the agenda, not in the footer, not in the notes, at the top. I kept my voice steady and let the numbers do the walking before the current operating system was rebuilt. Client onboarding averaged 42 days. After my redesign, it averaged 12. Critical workflow errors dropped 63% over 18 months. For strategic accounts totaling $39 million in contract value were retained after emergency recovery work. I created 236 process documents, 17 escalation maps, and 9 client-specific recovery models. No one interrupted. Then Grant cleared his throat. Those achievements belong to the team. I nodded. That's interesting because when the quarterly leadership award was issued for Barton Freight, the team had one name on the plaque, yours. But when the failed patch nearly triggered a $2.44 million penalty, suddenly, the team became me. A board member lowered her eyes, but not before I saw the corner of her mouth move. Grant tried again. Nova has always been a strong contributor, but contribution is different from leadership. The CEO turned to him. Grant, you denied her promotion because she was not ready for senior management. Correct. Grant adjusted his tie. Based on my assessment, yes. The CEO folded his hands. Then explain why this company nearly stalled when she performed only the duties listed in her current job description. The room became so still, I could hear the projector fan. Grant looked at the CFO, then legal, then Derek, who was suddenly fascinated by the table grain. I would need to review the operational context, he said. Finally, the CEO leaned back. You were the operational context. For the first time ever, Grant Mercer had nothing to translate into management language. After the board meeting, the CEO asked me to stay behind. Grant left first, stiff-backed and silent, which was probably the closest he had ever come to The CEO closed the folder in front of him. Nova, we owe you more than an apology. That would be a good start, I said. He did not flinch. I'm offering you Vice President of Operational Strategy. A 72% salary increase, equity, authority to build your own department, and direct oversight of the internal promotion process for 6 years. I had waited for someone in that building to decide I was worthy. Now, the same building was holding its breath, hoping I would decide it was worthy of me. I should have felt triumphant instead. I felt clear. I'm not accepting today, I said. His eyebrows rose. May I ask why? Because a title does not fix the system that made this possible. He leaned back slowly. I have 3 conditions. First, Grant loses all authority over performance reviews, promotions, and succession planning. He can manage spreadsheets if you still trust him with sales, but not people. The CEO's mouth twitched. Understood. Second, Derek returns to basic operations training. No leadership track. No special title. No nephew-shaped shortcut. Reasonable, he said. Third, Hawthorne Grid launches a formal internal talent program. Anonymous nomination options, documented promotion criteria, compensation audits, and quarterly reviews for employees performing above title. This time he did not answer immediately. I continued. I canceled my resignation once because I wanted this company to see the truth. If I cancel it again, I need to know the truth will not be buried under my new office sign. The CEO looked at me for a long moment. You are not negotiating like someone afraid to leave. I'm not, and that was the real promotion. Not the salary, not the title, not the office. The power had shifted. I was no longer waiting to be chosen. Then his phone buzzed. He read the message and sighed. Grant has filed a complaint, he said. He claims you personally destroyed his career today. Grant's complaint did what his leadership never could. It created accountability because he accused me of destroying his career. The company opened an internal audit. Legal reviewed performance files, board reports, promotion notes, and every document Grant believed nobody would trace back to me. The results were poetic. He had used my work in 11 executive reports without credit. He had rated me not leadership ready with no measurable criteria. He had placed Derek on a management track while better qualified employees were ignored. He had hidden risk warnings before Barton Freight's failure. Then sent the board a report that made the disaster look like a team delay instead of his decision. Grant was terminated for ethics violations and misrepresentation. Derek was removed from the leadership program and reassigned to basic operations training, where someone explained what an SLA was. I accepted the VP role next week, but the victory was not the title. It was the program one built afterward, the visibility ladder. Within 6 months, 34 overlooked employees received compensation reviews. 12 were promoted and overtime dropped because quiet competence was finally treated as talent, not free labor. On my first morning in the office, I saw my name on the glass. Nova Wells, Vice President of Operational Strategy. I thought about the resignation email I had deleted. Leaving would have saved me. Staying changed the system. Grant said I was better suited to support. He was right about one thing. I supported the truth until it crushed him. Sometimes the strongest thing I ever did was not walking away. It was finally letting the truth stand where my silence used to be. This story taught me lessons I will never forget. First, your value does not disappear just because someone refuses to recognize it. Second, quiet hard work deserves credit, not exploitation. Third, documentation can protect you when words are twisted against you. Fourth, leadership is not about taking credit. It is about building systems where others can rise. Fifth, justice feels even better when it helps more people than just yourself. And what about you? Did this story teach you something about your own workplace, your own worth, or the courage to stop being invisible? Share it in the comments. I truly want to know if this story gave you strength. Subscribe, like, comment, and share it with someone who needs to remember their value today. Welcome to Boardroom Revenge Stories, a channel focused on workplace conflict, corporate betrayal, power struggles, and quiet justice. Our stories follow a structured workflow to deliver a consistent immersive experience. We start by analyzing real discussions on Reddit, Facebook, Quora, and blogs. Next, we craft original scripts using AI tools like ChatGPT. We then use 11 Labs to transform text into high-quality voice and edit everything in Kaput for a smooth cinematic finish. Thumbnails are designed with Canva, and every video is carefully reviewed before release. These stories go beyond entertainment, revealing how power truly works and how justice quietly unfolds.